sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go, live from Denver, Colorado. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show. Wherever and however you may be watching and listening, thanks for making us part of your evening. It is a glorious week. Why? As Chase joins us, we know why, because the playoffs for both the NBA and the NHL, and towards the end of our show, the first of two mock drafts we got on the show. Now, this one, I told everybody about this. We plan to go at least straight up on this mock draft. So no trades. We kind of want to get the idea of positions that teams are going to go for. And then the second one will start to get a little bit creative and incorporate up some trades. But I'll tell you what, before we get into that, you know how much of a hockey fanatic I am. And the Stanley Cup playoffs have been nothing short of fantastic. I mean,
nobody cares about the NBA.
Yeah, no. Hey, but I'll tell you what, though. The NBA playoffs have actually been pretty interesting. You watched the Timberwolves, how they really gave it to the Lakers. I mean, that was game one, and they got physical up on there. But so much to talk about before we get into our mock draft. So I want to start out with this, because everybody that has watched this show knows how much of a hockey fanatic that I am, and the Stanley Cup playoffs have been nothing short of exciting. But the NBA playoffs, I will tell you this, though. Lots of things have been kind of going around since the season's been over, and now we're in playoff time. Now, I know the regular season was not really an eye catcher, and we all kind of admit that with the NBA. But here's the deal about this. I'm watching a lot of these NBA highlights, but when I tell you there is a difference between a young and hungry team that hasn't quite yet built for the playoffs and a veteran mixed young core team that just have been there before, and they know exactly what to do in these situations. So I was watching a bunch of them, and I will tell you this. The Houston Rockets, they are a young ascending team, but they're not quite there yet. And the Golden State Warriors, I mean, you could tell this team is old, but this team still plays to its extent of what Steve Kerr believes in. And that's with Steph, that's with Draymond, and all you got to do is you got to put all the pieces together. Now, in the end, we know that when it comes to Houston and when it came to a lot of young teams, we said this about OKC 2 years ago, because they are still a young team. And you got to build some pieces around them. But man, did the Houston Rockets, do they lack a little bit of some experience? But it's nothing against the Houston Rockets. It's been a while since they've been in the playoffs. And I love Emi Udoka. I don't love his personal stuff that he had outside the court. But I will tell you what, though, he's a heck of a coach. And they're not that far away. But the Houston Rockets, they could use a Kevin Durant. They could use someone like that. You need at least a very good scorer and at least add some defensive pieces and size. And that's where the Houston Rockets really lacked at. But in the end, Golden State reminded you what team they are. And they're built for the playoffs. Every time when you got Steph and Draymond on the court and all the experience in coaching with Steve Kerr, they're going to make it work. It may not look pretty at first, but they will make it work, which is why I took Golden State in 6 in this series. because I do believe that the Houston Rockets, they'll come away with the game. I don't think they're not going to come away and be swept by the Golden State Warriors. I don't believe that at all. I think, as nice as I possibly can, I do believe the Golden State Warriors will win this series. But Houston, they might take a game at home. Maybe they might take a game on the road. But Houston is only there to get the experience that they can in the playoffs. And come the offseason, they will get somebody in free agency to give them a little bit more of a veteran boost. Maybe a Kevin Durant. I mean, that's honestly what you're looking for, because right now the Phoenix Suns look like an absolute mess, and there's also a bunch of other players that you could go and get in the free agent market. But Houston, it's a young team. OKC, I will tell you this. I think OKC, they'll be interesting in the playoffs. But I love the way that SGA and Chet Holmgren and multiple others, how they've played up so far. But this is going to be an interesting and wild NBA playoffs. And in the end, the best series that I've watched so far has been the Timberwolves and the LA Lakers. I will say this. The Lakers, I know they lost, but I'll tell you what, they're going to come back and win a game tonight. And the thing about it is because when you look at Luka and the construction of the Lakers, this was what I was telling everybody. The Lakers a little bit lack size. That's the part. So to me, I feel like the Lakers, because of what they saw from the Timberwolves, because once you got Anthony Edwards in strides and he's on fire, he's unstoppable, and he plays a lot really good on that physicality game. He really does. Between him, DiVincenzo, and multiple others. Once they got Cat out of the building, they added up some attitude and they added up some physical play. And that's the kind of thing that will piss any team off. So the Lakers, as we know, and I was talking with some people up on the outside, getting some perspective. As much as I love Luka, and I know he's a hyper-aggressive scorer, but he only plays a certain defense. And it's not the kind of defense that will help you to at least get over the humps and win the playoff series. It's not the kind. So Minnesota, they did exactly with what Chris Finch put together. They added physicality. They attacked the perimeter. And at the same time, they got the important rebounds that they needed to keep possession on their side. That's the way that you got to play it. As much as people love watching the hyper-aggressive scoring, Luka Doncic out on the field, up on the floor, if he's putting up 40 points, how are you going to guarantee that they're going to secure 40 points at the end of the night? They're not. That's the part that you want to be scared about if you're the Lakers. The Lakers, when they got that trade for Luka in Dallas, I know it hurts for the Dallas Mavericks right now. I know it does. And we've said this before. The long-term deal, Lakers won that trade. The short-term deal, I think if Dallas rebounds next year, that could be an interesting team because they got size. If everybody is healthy, and that's including AD and Kyrie, that team could easily be a threat in the playoffs in the West. But when you look at the Lakers, we know LeBron's getting up in age. We know that there's a little bit of some inexperience on this roster that really needs to shape itself up. But in the long term, they'll be fine. But I do believe they need to add size. I do believe that they need to add some physicality. But that's the thing that the Lakers know that they need to figure out. In fact, they've already signed Rob Pelinka to a multi-year contract. So Rob Pelinka is going to have to figure that out. But they know what they got into. So, again, I like a lot of the Timberwolves up and in this series, but with a lot of people, everyone's all going for Lakers at 5. I heard everything about it. I know. But again, I think this is going to be one of my favorite series because watching Anthony Edwards and what he does, and then not to mention you've got physicality with DiVincenzo and multiple others on that floor, like the T-Wolves are not going to make that series easy. So I expect this, but we knew with what the Lakers were going to look like. They were going to lack a little bit in size. Yes, they could score points. But if you do not match at least the possession game, that's where majority of the time you're going to lose. And again, even as experienced as the Golden State Warriors are, we know they lack in certain spots because they're kind of getting a much older than usual. But the veteran experience can still work. And you got to get Pods. You got to get Kayvon Looney. You got to get everybody involved. That's the part where the Golden State knows that. But this NBA playoff, I mean, you just saw what happened to the Knicks. And I was trying to tell everybody, when it came to that trade for Karl Anthony Towns, you're only getting an offensive big. But when you got to ask him to go and get rebounds, shots, blocks, and stops up in front and be a pain in the neck in the perimeter and even up on rim protection, Cat's not going to do it. I'm sorry. But that's the part where you know the Knicks really got to tighten it up. Because if you don't do that, you're going to find yourself out of the playoffs. So, again, I think it's been exciting. So I want to turn to hockey a little bit, because all these playoff games have been fantastic. In fact, that electrifying game between the Kings and the Oilers, and that just tells you how great Connor McDavid really is. So as much as I just don't trust the Edmonton Oilers, I trust Connor McDavid, and that's the only reason why they play as well as they are. If he's on fire and he's the tone setter on the ice, and that's the part where you really got to lean on. But to me personally, the Oilers, I don't see them really winning this series against the Kings. I had the Kings winning this one in potentially 6, because Darcy Kemper's been in this position multiple times, and I do believe that with the Kings core, when they got offensive players and they got physicality and veteran presence, they'll be a very good team. They're capable of getting into the second round. The Oilers from last year, we saw how hyper-aggressive they were offensively. But part of it that scared me was their defense, and not to mention their added stops. But that's why the Florida Panthers took advantage of what they did in the Cup last year. So, and even the Florida Panthers, they're kind of having a little bit of a scare right now, because Tampa Bay, John Cooper, they ain't out of the water. Okay, Tampa Bay, they're reminding everybody, hey, we've been the most aggressive team no matter what year it is. Okay, yeah, we've been back-to-back Cup champions, but I'll tell you what, you ain't killing us off yet. I mean, that's what John Cooper does. So ultimately, too, and you watch the Vegas Golden Knights, I mean, they've been handing it to the Minnesota Wild. And for as close as that game was, nail in the coffin by literally a tenth of a second. They scored the empty netter. That was exciting to watch. I was very surprised of the Capitals' performance against the Canadiens, because it just tells you how great Alex Ovechkin really is outside the lines. But at the same time, they almost blew that game. They blew the lead. And so they at least survived and secured it. And then it was kind of the normal thing. I expected Carolina to be that team, start up a little bit slow, but now they're already up right now in game 2, 2-1 against New Jersey. And I expected the Canes to come out swinging. They're a very good passing team. They've also are very good at least opening up those spots to get some lanes to score. That's what the Carolina Hurricanes and Rod Brind'Amour always seems to put up on the table. But my other favorite series is the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars, because you know Colorado wants the last laugh against Mikko Rantanen, and you know that. But the Stars, they were able to survive the other night, and the series is tied. But I expect this to be a back and forth type battle. That's why I think it's going to be a 7-game series between the two of them. But the thing that I love the most is, just like last year, you were going to have a team that doesn't quite have everything buttoned up. And that's mostly your goaltending, your defense, and your passing. Okay, offensively, you've been seeing a lot of goals scored. But if you don't tighten it up in close games like that, that's where it's going to be a long series before you even know it. And it's going to wrap up pretty quickly, and you won't even see it coming. But all these playoff games from both hockey and the NBA, we understand a lot of these teams' identities now. And like I told a lot of people when it came to the Lakers, when you lack up in size, yeah, you can have over hyper-aggressive scoring, because you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the time of James Harden and the Rockets when they were literally small. They didn't have size. In fact, they got rid of Clint Capella. So I would expect the Lakers to figure this out with JJ Redick and company, but I'm just telling you, that's exactly what that looks like. If you do not add up physical play and you don't add up size to at least get rim protection and get possession on your side on the floor. Well, Chase, it's been electrifying. And like I said, these hockey playoffs, it's like every time when I'm watching these highlights, I just know exactly what their identity was. That's why when we did the whole breakdown of the bracket, it's because we're looking at, first of all, who your coach is, not to mention, are you coming into the playoffs with a hot hand, or are you again kind of starting a little bit cold and slow? But there are some teams out there, just like last year, where they did not button up defensively. I mean, when I watched that Kings game and they were leading up, it was like 4-0, and then yet the Oilers come back and they tie it 5-5, and then it's overtime and the Kings win it and survive 6-5. Like I love stuff like that, but still, you got to be able to button it up and tighten it up.
Didn't the Dallas Stars win too?
The Dallas Stars did win, so that's a tiebreaker. This is why I said I think that series is going to go in 7 because they both match up evenly. I think that what sucks is that I think because the Stars, they're without Miro Heiskanen and they're also without Jason Robertson. That's what really kind of hurts them a little bit more. But we know that the Avs, they've got to figure out the goaltending spot. Because if you got Scott Wedgwood and you've got Mackenzie Blackwood, you've got to be able to utilize both of those. And whomever's got the hot hand, go with that one. That's the part. So that's why I think it's going to be a 7-game series, because I don't see the Stars really being down and out. If you take that thing to 7, that's going to be a long series, and you're going to be tired by the time you get into round 2.
Did you see the Sharks have the first overall pick this year?
I did. And you know what? I mean, the Sharks are rebuilding, and we knew that from the get-go. I mean, when they got Silabrini and they got a couple of other youngsters who I really like that I'm excited for their future build, because the Sharks, that's why they got rid of a lot of the contracts. And here's the other hard part is their captain, Logan Couture, ended up medically retiring. So that's a hard part for them. So, but again, all these guys that I remember from the 2019 year, Logan Couture, Joe Pavelski, Erik Karlsson, Tomas Hertl. The only one that's still around from this team is Pierre-Edouard Vlasic. That's the part I can't even believe that defenseman has still been around since 2019. And this is why it's been a youth movement for the Sharks. And they know that they've had to go in rebuild mode. I don't know how long that it's going to take them. But at least I trust their build before I trust the Philadelphia Flyers' build.
I mean, I'm a Red Wings fan. I've been a Red Wings fan since I was little because of my dad.
Yeah.
And everything. And then there's also another team I like, and it's only because their cartoon series was fucking amazing. And it's the Mighty Ducks.
Oh man, the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. Listen, I remember even watching the Ducks when Ryan Getzlaf. It was back when I think they won the Cup in 2007. That was a very good team. But the problem is they're trying this youth movement, but yet they're still clinging on John Gibson. I don't understand this.
I miss their old logo. Their old logo was way better than their new one.
Oh, I know. But I love the fact that they're bringing back the old nostalgia, which is what we really do enjoy. But again, who knows if they're going to honestly build this team up with Troy Terry and with Trevor Zegras. I love both those kids, but you can't get nowhere if you can't end up building the way that you're supposed to. So,
uniforms are flashy, and the looks are fine, but when you can't put a team together, man,
yeah.
You know how that is. The Colorado Rockies had, their City Connect uniforms, and
did you see that?
They look cool, but now you ain't got a team. You ain't got a team.
You know what's funny is I actually saved it. I saw I actually saw a post where they had all the Colorado teams. So it was the Broncos, the Rockies, the Avs, and then there was the Colorado Buffaloes, and then there's the Rockies. And it was just what are they doing? But again, You know what's funny is
because every Denver team has had success except for the Rockies.
They have, yes. Well, here's the thing. Everybody, like, I go to everybody and I ask them what Rocktober in 2007 was. They're like, it was a madhouse. By the time when they went into the World Series against the Boston Red Sox, now it was a heartbreaker that they lost, but still, the vibe, the energy, and I don't know what happened to them. But we know it's a hitter's friendly ballpark in Coors because of that altitude and all the rest of it. And pitchers hate it. That's why you don't get a lot of those aces to come into Colorado. But still, you know what's crazy about it is I just got news of it today. But Chris Bryant is back on the IL, and he was suffering from a chronic back injury, but he's not retiring. That's the other thing. So how long of this can you possibly last?
He's got one more year on his contract, so.
Yeah, eventually you're going to have to cut ties. But will the Rockies ever learn from their mistakes?
They're in a division where the Padres have gotten better, and their owner wants to win. He's willing to spend the money. He has said, whatever it takes, I will do it. So
you're
in a division with the Rockies, with the Giants, that they're getting better because they're only 2 games out of first place, and the Dodgers are also in that division, and they're tied.
Did you see the division standings right now in the NOS?
Dude,
4 of the 5 teams are over 500. 4 of the 5. And the Rockies have only won 4 games. Like, that's
when is it going to be that time when Rob Manfred steps in and is just like, all right, enough is enough. We actually have to get this team to win.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be sold.
Look at all these antics that's happening in Pittsburgh with the Pirates. I mean, to me personally, when I saw that news, when it came to, Roberto Clemente's family, I would have just automatically have just said, oh, hell no. Because that's another, pivotal moment in baseball when it came to Roberto Clemente. I mean, yes, we always celebrate April 15th, Jackie Robinson Day. We always do. But Roberto Clemente deserves that same respect as well. Because it's what paves the way for many of these international stars. You know what I mean? Because whether you're Puerto Rican or Cuban or Japanese, it paved the way for a lot of them. Because eventually, now you're starting to see it explode. And that's because, look at the star we got in Los Angeles. It's Shohei Ohtani. So it's like it's growing. And a lot of people said, what's funny is like, if you built an international team, I will take either Dominican, probably, mixture of Japanese, Cuban hitters in your lineup, and then have Japanese pitchers.
Yeah.
Because they just throw the funky stuff.
They do. But you're right, though. When are the Rockies going to learn? Because you're in a division where you've got 3 teams right now that are battling for first place, and then another team that had went to the World Series just 2 years ago in the Arizona Diamondbacks. Yep. And yet the Rockies have not been relevant since 2010 when they had Troy Tulowitzki.
Oh, yeah. Well, even more than that. Even when they had Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado and all those guys. They've had such great hitters. And now you got Charlie Condon up and in the minors that is going to be an explosive player once he gets called up. So it's like, when is this going to end? So
they've spent the last 3 drafts on pitching, except for Charlie Condon.
But again, do you kind of blame that idea, knowing that they need to shape up the pitching staff?
I do not blame them at all. I understand you need bullpen pitching badly. I understand that you need starting pitchers badly. The other problem that they have, their manager sucks.
Well, here's what's funny. Did you see?
A new one.
Well, here's the thing, though, and I don't disrespect Bud Black at all. I think Bud Black, he does his job. Did you see earlier that they fired their hitting coach, and now Clint Hurdle, the former manager of the Pirates, now he's their new hitting coach? I like that because I trust Clint Hurdle before I trust whoever the hell that guy was as a hitting coach. Seriously, if they move in the right direction, and a lot of this is, like I said, it's a family business with them. Unless they actually stop being so insular, then the Rockies will be relevant again. But again, did you see those City Connect jerseys? It's interesting. I literally
I was walking
funny
that Paul Skeens, his bobblehead night was tampered because the fans are screaming, "Sell the team! Sell the team!" They've been chanting that every single game that Paul Skeens has pitched. And it's funny because these fans were like, I will not blame him if he leaves after his 5-year contract's up. Because every rookie gets a 5-year contract.
Nobody will. Everybody knows he's either a future Dodger, a Brave, a Met, a Yankee. Everybody knows that Paul Skeens is going to honestly do that. And you can't blame Paul Skeens because he's a great player. And obviously, I'm with the players going and getting theirs and doing what they need to because that's for the sake of just their careers. But an organization, they got to be up and on the same pages because, again,
don't be shocked if he goes to Philly or Padres either.
Oh, I won't be either. But, well, you know how much that the Seattle Mariners have been crying for starting pitching seriously?
Dude, if they don't even have a very good lineup. How much that would help them out a lot?
Oh, it would get them up and over the top. And then the other thing is that they also need a bat. Yeah, Red Sox would be another one. I mean, Garrett Crochet is looking really good. So, and same with Walker Buehler. I just watched him toss the gem not too long ago.
Yeah.
So, again, that's why when people are saying these small market teams can't compete, well, look at what they're doing. They're caring a lot about ticket sales, asses in the seats, and merchandises and concessions. They don't care about, well, how are we going to, build around this lineup in our rotation and our bullpen? They're never going to do it.
You want asses in the seats? Start winning more games. And the way to win more games, build the team.
Exactly.
That's why I love it. But I am also sitting here saying that it goes from not just the ownership, it goes from the president and GM of the teams as well. Because Paul Dolan, one of the worst, most cheapest owners in the league, does not spend money worth a damn. He offered Francisco Lindor a 7-year, $100 million contract, and he turned it down. I don't blame him. But the reason why we have been so successful recently is because, one, Chris Antonetti, our president, knows how to evaluate talent and bring it in with cheap veteran contracts and getting managers that are player-friendly, that the players love playing for. And not only that, they know how to build a farm system really well.
Yeah. No, and that's why I've never counted out the Guardians for as long as they have, because they always seem to be pulling up something weird out of their sleeve. Yeah. Because and it's kind of crazy because now we've heard the news that Tristan McKenzie has been designated for assignment.
But we just brought up a bullpen pitcher, and we brought up Will Wilson, who in 18 games in Columbus, we got him in the Rule 5 draft out of from Los Angeles. Yeah. He's 26 years old, but in 18 games in Columbus so far, a 324 average, 6 home runs, 18 RBIs.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, our starting pitching sucks. It hasn't been going deep into games, and we've had to use our bullpen a lot lately. But right now we are 13-9, and we are up 3-2 on the Yankees again.
So see, it's just it's as simple as that.
A half game out of first. I don't know.
Yeah. Good stuff. Man, I'm so excited for this mock draft. I really am, because we did this last year, and I was lucky enough to at least get 3 about the way. But I'll tell you what, I don't see a lot of these positions really taking me out of my chair. Because a lot of these we know are superior depth pieces, but not a lot of them that I felt like could literally get me out of my chair like last year, because there were a lot of pivotal stars and at least players that were ready to play, and they're very productive. I felt like we got a lot of them, but this one will be interesting though. That'll be up and on the tail ends.
And so with you doing the odd picks and me doing the even ones, It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen.
I know. And the rumor mills, they're being thrown around everywhere, you know, and then like you said, with the free agent market still, with the amount of names that are still on it, anything could possibly happen. But I do have, before our mock draft, I have 5 things that I think coming out of this draft, which is actually, it's not in order, but there's 5 takeaways of mine. I call it the fiery 5. Like, everybody knows when I do like my sports bets, I have my Inferno 5, my personal favorite 5 bets. I've got my fiery 5 of takes that will happen during the draft. So you don't want to end up missing that coming up after the break. Well, folks, mock draft, but I'm also super stoked of the way that the playoffs have flung into full swing. NBA, NHL, there's so much to go around, and Major League Baseball is also been starting up, and it's been a great start thus far. But BetUS is your home for playoff time, whether hockey or basketball, and baseball if you're swinging far for the fences. And then not to mention prop bets in draft picks for the NFL. They're available right now if you go online to BetUS.com. Your home for all things the best prop bets. Also, the award-winning sports book in over 30 years. Getting you ready for the playoffs, Major League Baseball season, and more and more. BetUS can also guarantee you your very own account manager when you sign up to give you the best of what BetUS has to offer you. I trust BetUS. We've used it multiple times, and we've had really good winnings. We had some pretty good winning tickets, and only you could have the winning ticket yourself if you sign up with BetUS. And that's BetUS.com. 3 deposits, your first 3 deposits or more of up to $50 or more guarantees you up to $2,000 in winnings when you sign up and you play today. Not to mention their fun casino play to check out as well. If you love tables, you love slots, you love all of those things, BetUS has it all for you. Go online to BetUS.com and sign yourselves up. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or seek therapy in your respective states and wherever BetUS is available in your state, because BetUS doesn't want you to gamble irresponsibly. Check out BetUS today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing deal of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients you can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Back with you here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. As we've said before, check out Muscle Tech today. I have been on such a workout grind, and I love Muscle Tech, and you will love it too by using promo code SNAKESPORTS for 30% off of all of your purchases just by going to muscletech.com, purchasing orders, 30% off. So the NFL draft night, as we know, and Chase and I are excited to do our first of 2 mock drafts, there's going to be a lot in play. And a lot of that is because right now, teams have been getting their final thoughts. They're gathering and collecting all their information to see who they will pick in the first round. So I figured before we go into our mock draft, because there are some interesting takes that I have 5 of them. And I figured I would share it with you guys, because I honestly think, unlike last year, where it was very offensive top heavy, because we had very good quarterbacks, we've had very good wide receivers. It was not as crazy big on running backs, but we did get Bucky Irving and we did get Braylon Allen. I'm curious to see how Marshawn Lloyd really pans out for the Packers, but there wasn't a whole lot of running backs like there is this year. So there are some opportunities for that. The other thing is it's very defensive heavy. So before we get into our mock drafts, I have my fiery 5 takes and commencing the music from here. So getting you locked in on my fiery 5. So number 1, this draft, I feel like, is going to be 70% defensive, 30% offensive in the first round. And the only reason of this is because you are watching teams get younger defensively. What did we learn from the Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Once you get younger up on defense, they're more agile, they're more explosive, they're more physical. And a lot of these defensive players, because when they wear out in the tires, it's just like, the truck I drive. I drive a Tacoma, and I want to make sure my tires are good, I got enough traction, and also, I use synthetic oil because I want enough power in the engine. And if you don't have that, then that's where defenses tend to get gashed. But at the same time, you also want to make sure that you've got possession on your side, on the offensive side of the ball. Okay, so that's my first. Number 2, there's going to be 2 quarterbacks taken in the first round. 2. Because a lot of people keep thinking, Shedeur Sanders is going to fall out of the first round. Are you kidding me? How? Shedeur is way too talented to pass up. And like I told a lot of people, because people thought my outrageous take when I said that the New England Patriots, they are patient. They are not, they're not desperate. They are going to want to trade that number 4 pick for somebody more in particular and spicy to add up to their roster. So, you know who could be up in play? San Francisco could be up in play because they are not paying Brock Purdy. And I've told everybody about that. Nobody believed me, but watch what could potentially happen. And then the other team that's also looking forward, but I don't know about that now because their right tackle just retired, Ryan Ramczyk, and that's the New Orleans Saints. So if Shedeur Sanders falls on your lap in the round, it is way too rich to pass up. I mean, that's a very talented player. Number 3, I think a lot of this is that there are some very talented defensive linemen that could very much hit all season long. I mean, your Mason Grahams, your Kenneth Grants. I mean, sure, you can mix some edge rushers up and in there, but it's the D lineman class that I really, really like. There's several of them because to me, so Chase, when we answered the first question, he believes there's 4. I think there's going to be 2. But the D lineman class, South Carolina, Michigan, a lot of those Midwest, maybe more particularly too, a little on the southeast side, they've got some very good D linemen. I expect a lot of these D linemen in this up-and-coming draft class to literally be A-plus kids. Like, they are too rich to pass up. It don't even matter rounds 1 through 7. You're going to get it. Number 4, there are going to be at least 5 steals in the draft. 5. That you would not see coming, that are explosive, kids that are NFL ready. And like I told a lot of people, you know, one of them in particular I look at, Nick Nash from San Jose State. I think he will definitely be a steal in the draft. There's going to be at least 5 of them. And because we usually, last year, I mean, we started to get some buildup of some later rounds where they really picked up, and they picked up heavy. So I believe there are going to be 5 big-time steals in the draft that nobody even saw coming, that I think could truthfully be impactful, and they could help a team offensively or defensively get them up over the hump and maybe be absolute threats in the playoffs. They could really help a team do that. And finally, you're going to see a lot of teams' identities, whether they will be playoff teams or they would honestly be pretenders. So I think it's interesting, though, because a lot of these roster constructions, this is the most heavily roster constructed draft that you could honestly ask for, and you're begging for this because the NFC, they're big on roster construction because the AFC is so quarterback top heavy. So, but I do feel that you're going to see a lot of these identities, and there may be teams that could be pretenders. I already had the Patriots be contenders for the playoffs, and I have the Steelers being pretenders. There may be more of them that could be showing their true colors in this draft, and it all depends on who they pick, their position of need, and whether that's a good enough fit for the scheme fit that they have or not. And you're going to see all of that. So that's my fiery 5 from there. And with that, I pass over to my good co-host, Chase with news.
This is the Hot Press.
Well, what do you think about that fiery 5? I know you got 4 quarterbacks in the first round being taken. Oh, he's muted.
I do. I think Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart sneak into the first round because you've got those teams that are desperate for a QB that want that 5th-year option, because that 5th-year option is valuable to a lot of teams because, you know, especially with guys like this that are developmental pieces that may take like an extra year before you want to start them, because that's why the Packers traded back into the first round to get Jordan Love, because they knew that if they got him in the 4th round or in the 2nd round, then they wouldn't have had an extra year to work with them. I think the only reason why you have 4 going to in the first round is because somebody's going to want Jalen Milroe to sit for a year, if not 2. And develop and everything. And the best and like now, if you let him sit for 2 years, you've got 3 years to evaluate him as a starter rather than 4 or rather than 2.
Well, that's why obviously the hot commodity is Cam Ward. We all know this. Yeah. But I thought it was just outrageous when people keep thinking that Shedeur is going to fall out of the first round. I think it's ridiculous. Like, what are you really seeing? Because if you're just saying, well, it's Deion's son, and you know, no, I don't want to hear that. All I've heard was, and we broke this down perfectly, is Shedeur. We know he tends to hold on to the ball for too long, but because of quick decisions when you get into the NFL, and the other thing is, he already calloused himself to be an NFL quarterback because he was the most sacked quarterback in college. So if you give him a better offensive line, and he was 74% completion percent, how could you ignore that? That's why I'm like, if you're the 49ers or you're any other team that could potentially look for a quarterback that will give you 5 years guaranteed from there before you have to think about that 5th-year option, why not go for it? And see exactly where that gets you. Because, like I told you before, I don't even know about New Orleans at this point, now that their right tackle's retired. They're going to have to go elsewhere.
That you're going to like. So,
all right.
So Adam Schefter has been reporting that there is a possibility. They've been throwing this around and haven't really, made it stick. And it's just a rumor. But a rumor has it that the 49ers are looking to move up into the top 4 in the draft. And there's a possibility that they could offer Brock Purdy in a trade package to the Giants for that number 3 pick so they can choose Shedeur Sanders.
What did I tell you? I've been saying that to everybody. Like, I'm not BSing the people. Like, seriously, I'm not BSing you people. I've told you before, when I have reliable sources, they do not prove me wrong.
And it's coming from Schefter's mouth.
See what happens? So this is interesting. Because with Brock Purdy, he has more leverage because of the age he's at and the experience, which is kind of what the Giants like. But at the same time, when have we ever seen Kyle Shanahan with an over-the-top quarterback? Man, you know how many Niner fans now are on the same level as Pittsburgh fans? They hate me in the Bay Area now. Good God. Why?
Awesome.
Are you is it because that you're afraid to hear the truth? Because I've told everybody I am not a Brock Purdy hater. But you gotta honestly validate the eye test. I know he's been to a Super Bowl. I know that he's been to NFC Championship, Conference Championship. I know that he honestly can help bring the Niners to at least the promised land. But here's the problem, is a lot of that accounted for him or Kyle Shanahan. That's a talented roster. And what does Kyle Shanahan like the most? Accuracy, pocket presence, and at least Shedeur Sanders has.
His dad played for.
Yes, and Shedeur Sanders can get you over the top.
And if you get Shedeur Sanders, you do not have to pay him right away. You can now take that money that you save and go get some of these free agents.
Because you know what you're going to have to deal with? You know what you're going to have to deal with? Kyle Juszczyk being gone. George Kittle retiring, Trent Williams retiring, Brandon Ayuk's contract being too much. You're going to have to deal with all of that. Do you want to hit the gold rush or do you want to be bankrupt? Because here's the thing. I know I don't get political of this, and I know people feel a certain type of way about taxes and tariffs, but here's the thing, though. Would you rather, strike gold when it's hot or just sit there and just feel like, well, it's going to come, and then all of a sudden you just lost out on the gold mine.
Or all of a sudden it doesn't come.
No. Yeah.
But
I tell you, you know what? I thank Adam Schefter for that. Because, again, my reliable resource wasn't even Adam, and even he predicted that. So that's why I brought this on the show last week. And now because Adam just validated that, I'm not BSing the people. As America's honesty mind, I will not steer them away from the truth.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Himself. But now, that's not the only news. The Cleveland Browns and New York Giants have been fielding offers for the number 2 and number 3 overall pick.
Yeah.
And it's to either draft Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, or to trade up and get Ashton Genty. Because there's been reports now that the Jags may take a swing at Genty, or that the Bears may try to trade up to number 2 or 3 to try to get him, because Ben Johnson really likes Ashton Genty. Now, the reports are that Cleveland is either asking for a first rounder for next year or something equivalent. So the Bears have 2 second-rounders this year. Offer those 2 second-rounders, a second next year, and a second the year after, and you may have a deal.
So that's the thing is because like I said, I don't think the Giants, I don't think their quarterback is in this draft. Like I told a lot of people, just because they came out here into Boulder, Colorado, does not mean it's a fully guaranteed they're taking Shedeur Sanders. They just got Russ. You got Jameis for 2 years. So why would they honestly take a quarterback and then now it's become a quarterback clutter? You know what that does? That doesn't do you any service at all when your offensive line outside of Andrew Thomas is banged up. And then at the same time, you need to get some playmakers, because that's why Travis Hunter is your go-to guy, because he can be your playmaker. And now you've got 3 of them that are there. There's my other thing. Could the Giants maybe take a tight end? I mean, do we trust Bellinger, the tight end, that much? Because it has not been that talented in quite a while. So there's all sorts of things. Now, the Jags one about Ashton Jeanty is really interesting, because does that mean Travis Etienne might get traded?
But you've also got to look at that O-line for the Jags. It is awful.
Yes, and so that's the thing. So that's why there's a lot of these that are superior needs from here. Offensive line is such a big deal, because Brandon Scherf is on the free agent market. There's a bunch of guys now that have hit the market or they've been gone away. But
speaking of the offensive line aspect, it brings me on to my next piece of news. I was watching the NFL Network earlier today, and they asked Jerry Jones a specific question about running backs for the Dallas Cowboys.
I can't wait to hear this.
And Jerry Jones actually had one of the most intelligent football takes that you could ever hear come out of his mouth. And I was very shocked by it.
Wow.
He's just like, you know what? And getting a running back is always a great thing. And drafting one high, a lot of people would wonder why we aren't going to go in that route. But he's just like, look at the offensive line. The offensive line is, bad right now. I feel like that's part of the reason why Dak was forcing too much last year and why he was struggling, because the offensive line was bad. You cannot go into this and think we need a running back right away. It's just like we got DeMarco Murray in the 4th round, and look at how good he was behind that O-line.
Yes.
We got Ezekiel Elliott in the 1st round, but look how good that O-line was. It's just like an O-line, we can get one of these guys late, and they would turn out to be good.
And see, realistically, this is why that, with the Cowboys, and again, it's a love-hate relationship with Jerry Jones, because you hate the fact that it's going this route, but you got to love the fact that he is at least still has that football IQ. Because you know what's funny? So 3 of the former Cowboys offensive linemen, they're all retired now. Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, and Zach Martin. Mm-hmm. And all 3 of them never won a ring. They were the most highly talented offensive line, and it was taken for granted. Why? Because they couldn't get over the hump. They couldn't even win many playoff series. They couldn't. And so, to me, if you're going to work this thing with Dak, then you need to protect the O-line and give him a healthy run game, and you can get it in the 3rd and 4th rounds, which is, because again, Caleb Johnson can be available from Iowa. You watch that. There's a couple more that are also up and in there. But
Dylan Sampson could be available.
Dylan Sampson is up and in there as well, and I've heard some very good things. I was actually watching. I was watching some draft profiles on some of these draftees, and just their personal backgrounds and their upbringings and all that, and it was enjoyable to watch. It really was, because there's many of these stories that you could go upon. But what I look for a lot of these draftees is, do you fit my scheme? What's your character build like? Because you want someone that's invested, and at the same time, they got to be ready to play, And so, with the Cowboys, they are an interesting one to keep your eyes out for, because it was either trade Dak, go and get Shedeur Sanders, because you weren't going to get Dion, and then you were going to build around from there, but then you get an overhaul of picks, and then you can immediately reshape parts of the roster that that you can fill. Because even though that, and I think a lot of this is because Jerry learned his lesson with Zeke. Mm-hmm. Because you took a 1st round running back, that was a gamble. That was rolling the dice. But luckily, because you had a very good, it did. But that's because you had a very good offensive line. So that's okay. If you didn't have the offensive line, of course, you'd be throwing that out the table. Like,
but I was thinking in my head, like, but look at Saquon Barkley. He had a terrible O-line with the Giants.
yes,
ended up doing really, really well.
Yes, but look at how terribly ran that Giants organization is. It did him no justice.
Ran that Cowboys organization is.
Well, to be fair, because last time that the Giants were, because the time when it took them 10 years until they finally made it into the playoffs when Brian Daboll came in, fixed up the offense, made Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley work, and they actually had the healthiest of their careers. So that's the difference. Now they haven't even been in the playoffs discussion because of just the way that this roster construction has been. And a lot of that is because I think they've got mediocre GMs like Dave Gettleman and Joe Shane. But that's why you got to fix this. At least I could give the Cowboys a little bit of grace because they have been in more playoff appearances than what the Giants have in the last 12 years.
What I'm saying. I like this take from Jerry Jones because, like, you know, this is the most intelligent football thing that he has said in a very long time because he realizes they drafted an O-lineman last year. He realizes that with, you know, Martin gone and with Smith gone, you're going to need a tackle and a guard combo. And you can see them get that with that 11th pick.
And look, we're not hating on
him do D-line because he also said, you know, we do need to build up the defense a little bit.
They're going to need it because in the end, the question mark is, I just got to know what they're going to do with Micah's contract because in the end, yes, you need a D lineman because once DeMarcus Lawrence left, you're going to need to solidify that front seven. And now, again, DeMarvion Overshown, I mean, he was a very, very good player. And I hope that the rehab process goes well for him because I've seen spurts of him be very impactful when some of the positions were not or they were hurt. So at the same time, you're going to need to fulfill that front seven. And like I said, if it means, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but even if that means you got to trade Trayvon Diggs away to get more capital so you could get shutdown corners and maybe get another front seven guy, then so be it. You'll reload from there. But yeah, I mean, the only saving grace and Achilles heel that they have is, you know, Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe is another one too. So to me, they got to keep front loading that whole thing. And you saw with what the Chargers, you saw what other teams like literally upgraded their offensive line. Because I know the Chargers, they love that. The Vikings did.
The Titans did.
The Titans and the Bears. And the Bears. I mean, but that's the thing, though. And so I think because Jerry is seeing this all the way around, like that's why it's a love-hate relationship. You got to love the fact that his football IQ understands that, like, what we did with at least the offensive line, we didn't do it much justice. We need to fix it. So, again, if you're going to roll with this with Dak, that is the idea that you need to do. Because I know a lot of people, like they talk, even I thought at first with Ashton Jitty with the Cowboys would feed families, but then again, I'm like, wait a minute.
Amazing. But like when Jerry came out and said, like, yeah, we do need a running back. We definitely do. I understand that. But we can get one in the later rounds. We need to focus on building that O-line to protect Dak and make sure this running back can be productive.
Yes, absolutely. To me, like I said, I love that comment. I at least makes me happy, even for Cowboy fans, because Cowboy fans, they're as real as they possibly can. But for them to make the comment, there's some hope in the air. So we shall see. They are one of my few teams to keep an eye on them come this draft night.
Oh yeah, with 10 picks and I think 2 in the second round, it's going to be interesting. The last piece of news that I have, the New York Yankees suck without Garrett Cole, because you can definitely see.
Are we sure?
You can definitely see without Garrett Cole that this Yankees starting pitching is getting shelled. They've got nobody on their starting rotation that is, or in their bullpen, mind you, that is like leading the way. They got shelled yesterday. Yeah. And the reason why they came back is, you know, Guardians gave up 2 2-run homers make it close. And then today, their pitching lost them the game again for the Yankees.
Oh, man. You know what? Like, I can't truthfully jump the gun in it right now. But we're still early in the season. So there's plenty of time for these teams to fix their problems. Now, luckily,
Boston is winning now too, so if they win today, they're half a game out of first because they've got one more loss than the Yankees.
Yeah, and then you got Toronto as well in that boat. So the AL East still continues to kind of keep themselves afloat. Even with Tampa and with Baltimore has not had such a hot start.
How do you go from winning 104 games to losing?
I know. I know. And look, because you're trying to get Keston Jersten and Jackson Holiday and several others of your young core, because now with Anthony Santander gone, you're just hoping that you got your battery in that lineup to at least juice them up, because Adley Rutschman, you already know he's the heart and soul of it. And then there's Gunnar Henderson. So Gunnar Henderson, the lucky thing is he is slowly coming around, but it is going to take some time. Now, I've always said this, it's never about how you start. It's always about how you finish in these circumstances.
Absolutely.
But we all know that there are some trade pieces that are around. Do we expect the Miami Marlins to literally maintain the start that they are on, and considering Sandy Alcantara is still going to be there?
A thing that's shocking to me is that the Oakland A's are not that far out of first in their division. They're in last place. They're in last place, but man, they're holding a 2-game lead in that division. I think it's the Astros are.
Yeah, the Texas Rangers right now are up at the top, but then you got Seattle, the Angels, and the Astros. And look, the Astros, this was kind of their wake-up call, and we knew that it was. Now, I love Cam Smith, the kid that they got on that trade. But the thing was, we knew we were going to come to this predicament. It was predictable. So, but yeah, the A's are not that far away. In fact, their youngster, Tyler Soderstrom, how about that kid?
Dude.
9 home runs already. And you know what's funny is they broke it down. All he had to shift was his front foot, right? Because it used to be outside. Now it's a little bit kind of closed in a little bit. And even that is helping him to get the stride.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
This A's team, if they can keep it up, man, they could be something in the future.
Oh, man.
The fact that they are the third team, or the team with the third most rings in baseball history. So,
and I do believe the team that's really disappointed to me, and I don't even know if they'll figure it out, is the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah,
they disappointed me to start the season.
IR again.
Yeah, they were waiting.
Paul Steen's going there to that team. That would help him out a lot.
That's if the Braves, truthfully, they make a blockbuster move to really help them to get over the top. But then again, I'm watching their bats between Olsen and Riley, and even Ozzie Albies with Acuna.
They're missing Acuna. Acuna's not back yet.
They are. But a lot of that is, it just kind of sucks because they're getting plagued with injuries left and right. And it's like you just expected Spencer Strider to be back, and now he's back in the IL again.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts, honestly. Chasing the news.
This is the Hot Press.
All right, so Chase and myself, we've been waiting for this for quite a while now, and it's finally right here around the corner. So last year, I did about 3 mock drafts, and it was actually very entertaining because of the fact that I've hit on a bunch of them. I'm hoping, though, because I'm sure Chase probably does have at least his notepad or anything to at least keep record of the picks that we have. I'll still save it up and on here because we'll obviously post it to all of our fans up on social media who keep up with it, because this is some exciting stuff. So with that being said, so I've got the odds. Chase has the evens. This is a straight up mock draft in this first one. So no trades. It's just the positions we do feel that these teams are going to go after. And so here we go from here with the NFL draft. All right, so we've got the Tennessee Titans at number 1, of course. Now there has been rumor mills. Will Levis is on the trade block.
Yeah.
And again, teams that are attracted to that are the Rams and several others that could honestly use a quarterback with NFL experience that doesn't take much to really adjust and regain the build.
And Mike Organzi said they're not trading out of that pick either.
They're not. So to me, it feels to me like this is obvious. Cam Ward is the number 1 overall pick.
Yes,
and
sir.
That's where, and like I said, because quarterback because if it wasn't for these rumors, I would have personally have seen them taking the best athlete available, and that's Abdul Carter. But because these rumor mills came out, now I feel it is clear, it is obvious, and there were sources, some scouters that were in Miami with the pro day, they actually changed their mind and they said, we are going with Cam Ward. So, yeah, there you go. Your quarterback of the future.
I mean, it like the Titans, the only pro days that they went to, they canceled every other one. Yep. They went to Abdul Carter's. It was Abdul Carter and Cam Ward's were the only ones that they went to, and they canceled every other single one that they went to because they wanted to do their due diligence to make sure, like, hey, can we really pass on a pass rusher like this? Because he could be the Myles Garrett / Micah Parsons type, but if we don't have that quarterback of the future, it ain't gonna mean shit. So they wanted to go with Cam Ward. Number 2, I'm going with Travis Hunter. I think that this one's almost a lock as well, just because Andrew Berry has talked very highly of Travis Hunter, and he has said, many, many good things about him, and he raves about him and talks him up tremendously. And he said that he would let him play both ways if they draft him. You go back a couple weeks ago, you would have thought it was Abdul Carter was almost the guaranteed slot. Adam Schefter was saying it. Now he has shifted his focus that after the Colorado Pro Day, when the Browns went to it, Andrew Berry was enamored by the way that, Travis Hunter was able to work out like that and keep on the field all the time and still not get winded. And just the way that he was talking about him, I see Travis Hunter being the pick here, no question.
I agree. No question at all about that. So
he's the best athlete too in the draft. So.
Oh yeah. So this is interesting for me because the Giants, do they really need to add an edge after they've got Kayvon Thibodeau? Now, a lot of people
he's on the trade block.
They did say that. So, but to me, why change that up if you've already got a core that you're trying to make work? To me personally, I've said it before and I will say it again, they need to fix that offensive line. And to me personally, I'm going to go with Will Campbell. Because, because here's the thing. Your quarterback is not in this draft. Okay, and that's why you got Russell Wilson and you've got Jameis Winston. And so the only way that you're going to guarantee for his upbringing is you got to fix that offensive line and give him time to throw. Because if you don't, and then at the same time, Tyrone Tracy's very nice. He's very nice in the backfield. I could see them adding a running back in the later round, but I've got to fix that offensive line. I already screwed over Brian Dable once. I cannot afford to do that for a second time. I'm telling you, I know Abdul Carter is nice, but I have to be realistic with this. And if my quarterback is not in this draft, I have got to get my offensive line, and I need to get my playmakers set and ready to roll when the quarterback arrives.
That is very, very shocking to me.
I
would have picked Abdul Carter because I know that they are comparing him to Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons, and the Giants are knowing.
Oh, of course, Penn State.
They are kicking themselves because of the Saquon Barkley thing, and they're like, damn, we cannot get this wrong this time. If we can get a playmaker the type of Myles Garrett in Abdul Carter, then they would 100% take that and then trade Kayvon maybe day 2 to get some day 2 picks or something. It would be, interesting. The Patriots, I was going to choose Will Campbell because I know that they have
I know.
They have to protect Drake May, and they spent all the money, all the $135 million that they had this offseason, they spent on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. I don't even know. Do you know for sure if they got any offensive linemen?
So all I know is David Andrews, he was released. I don't think they picked up a whole lot of offensive linemen, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah,
so they're
they
going to need
spent
some
all
help.
of their money on the defensive side of the ball.
They did. They did, because Vrabel is a defensive guy. He's tough. He's gritty. So, yeah, he likes that.
He is. But, you know, with the New England Patriots getting a very young quarterback like Drake May, having one of the worst offensive lines in the league, I hate to pass up on Abdul, but you got to take Armand Membao here.
Yep, Armand Membo, and I've heard a lot of really good things.
You can't pass up on an offensive lineman to protect Drake May.
Exactly, and because you have your quarterback of the future, whether it be left or right tackle, because honestly, you need to solidify that side to give him time to throw, and at the same time, we know that Mike Vrabel is tough and gritty, and he's all about working in the trenches. That's why, because when you look at Buffalo and the Jets, and I mean, Miami is struggling now without Teron Armstead. So I could see that happen to where New England's going to get physical. They're going to work in the trenches, but you got to have that offensive line to help you with that run game and protect Drake May at all costs. Number 5 to me, I mean, this was an obvious one. I'm going with Mason Graham. Yeah. Here's my thing about this is because now I know this is shocking to everybody right now because Abdul Carter is still there. But remember, there's no trades right now. This is basically the position of need. So to me, Mason Graham, they need to solidify that interior defensive line. And Mason Graham is that guy because even when you have Josh Hines-Allen and you've got that other pass rusher as well, you're going to need to double down and add on so you have more pressures because you want the quarterback to make mistakes. You also got to stop the run game in front of them. So Mason Graham is the obvious pick for me for Jacksonville.
Yeah. I mean, going with Trayvon Walker and then you have Josh Hines-Allen, you know, that the run stuffing guy, it's very, you know, tough to find a top tier defensive interior lineman like a Chris Jones, a Quinnen Williams. Like, it's tough to find those guys. And when you've got one that falls to you in your lap, you cannot pass up on him. So choosing Mason Graham there was the way to go.
Yes.
For me, this is a no-brainer. I feel like, you know, it's just almost a done deal. If he falls to them there, it's going to be Ashton Genty going to the Raiders here.
I agree.
I mean, you know, the way that the draft board is falling, everything's looking into place. And, you know, you got the Jets pick, but I have heard Adam Schefter say who they're almost guaranteed to pick regardless of who is on the board. But I want to see who your thoughts are and who you are going to pick for them.
So, yeah, I think Ashton Genty, because knowing Pete Carroll and knowing exactly like his spot on this, I really do see this be a thing to where they want to fix up that run game because it was absolutely horrid. I know they had Alexander Madison and Zamir White, but they were not bell cow running backs, and it was clearly obvious. Now, the Jets is zesty in this one. Because I know everybody on their mock drafts, they literally had them taking the tight end. You know what I have them taking? The best athlete available, Abdul Carter.
Wow.
And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because what did Aaron Glenn have in Detroit? He had Aiden Hutchinson. Now, the best part about this is Jermaine Johnson. You got him on the other side, and you add him with Abdul Carter, and you got Quinnen Williams up and in the front. Because if New England's going to play that ground and pound game and the trenches and Buffalo, why not the Jets get on the same side? Look, I know they need a tight end, but look, you can take a tight end in the second round.
Not as good as Tyler Warren, though. Like, that's not as good as Tyler Warren. Like,
yes,
that is.
But understand something is because look. I know everybody wants a tight end up in this spot, and I don't blame them. But at the same time, you know who the rumblings are that I'm getting? I'm getting Elijah Arroyo, so I'm not that far away from it. And again, he's very good. Okay, so he's not that far off. Now, if you go and get the best athlete available, okay, that's what's hard about this. You've got to take the best athlete available. And to me, hell yeah, I would be beefing on my defense like this. Unlike the Giants, who I've said need an offensive line, look at the Jets' offensive line. Olu Fashanu is very good. Elijah Berry Tucker's very good. So they've got something to work with. And not to mention, too, because Breece Hall, his name's being thrown around in these trade rumors as well. I don't understand why, but you got your dual running backs. To me, I would take an edge. Don't get desperate. Remember, there's a difference between take your draft of need and being desperate and going, we got to go with this guy. To me, Abdul Carter, frontline your defense, because knowing Josh Allen, you got to stop him in his tracks. You've also got to end up stopping New England, who's probably going to be the sneaky dark horse team making the playoffs. So I think Aaron Glenn goes that route, and I could take a tight end in the second round.
I mean, I see your thought process, and I'm not mad about it, but like
I know it's surprising. It shocked everybody.
But the Jets have been linked to either Ahmad Benbow or Tyler Warren. And, the thing is, Aaron Glenn is such a good defensive coordinator. He can work with what the Jets already have because they got such a great defensive roster.
Yes.
That, you can work with what you have. But you get a Tyler Warren because who do they have? They got Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and Braylon Allen. That's it. They got nobody else that is worth a damn on that offensive side of the ball. And you need somebody that Justin Fields can throw to.
Yes.
So, getting a tight end that's, on the same tier as Brock Bowers would have been huge for Justin. But, I mean, hey, I'm not mad at it.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Panthers, I'm going to have them choosing Jalen Walker. Right here, you get a guy who can play both the linebacker position and up on the line, but he is mainly that coverage / sideline to sideline linebacker that you would need. He is going to be that leader of the defense that you need. And you also have a guy who could be a good cornerstone piece to a defense that you started. They drafted mostly offense last year. I feel like this draft is going to be mostly defense for them, and they are willing to trade out of that 8th pick to pick up more picks and to get more defensive talent. I am okay with that. Now let's see what you got going on here, because Adam Schefter did say that the Saints are going to be looking more towards a QB in the second round or trying to trade up to that 33rd pick. So we'll see.
Now you just said it right there for me. So because they may be taking a quarterback and up and in the second round, you know what I have them taking? I have them taking the offensive tackle, Kelvin Banks, out of Texas. Because here's the thing.
I'm surprised. I would have thought Will Johnson would have been your pick here.
Well, because here's the thing, though. They have the one corner who was very, very good, and they've got Kool-Aid McKinstry. Now, I know Will Johnson is a very, very good pick, but what more defense does the Saints really need to have? Because, again, look at a lot of those contracts on the defensive side of the ball. With Cam Jordan and Demario Davis, Ryan Ramczyk literally retired. I need to fill that tackle spot. That's why I said before, it was so hard for me now because of even taking quarterback, because of course I would take Shador in this spot, but because that retirement happened, I need to fulfill that offensive tackle. So to me, I think Kelvin Banks works for me perfectly because at least that will shut down that side. You already had Tylee Spawaga, so now you have him and Kelvin Banks as your tackle duos right there. Now you could fix up the interior if you want to later on, but I know that they're going to start the season without Derek Carr with that injury, but this is why you have to protect your quarterback at all costs.
I mean, that's fair. I get the reasoning behind it, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Now, the Bears pick, you're going to be shocked on who I choose here.
Okay.
You're going to be very shocked. I'm going with Omarion Hampton with this pick.
Really? That high?
Omarion Hampton to the Bears with this pick. And the reason why is because the Bears don't pick until pick, 39.
Yeah, I can understand.
39 and 41. And with Omarion Hampton, he is a talented enough running back that they pick early day one. And you know that Ben Johnson is ranting and raving about how he wants Ashton Jeanty, how he wants that running back. And he does not have that running back on the Bears like he did in Detroit. And if you get on Omarion Hampton and you can, rotate him and Swift out and everything, you may have the guy that bell cow back that is your Jahmyr Gibbs for the Chicago Bears, and he is not going to let the talent of Omarion Hampton pass like he did with or like you can't. So that's why I got Hampton going that early.
I agree with that. Yes. So okay. I was willing to shock you once with the Abdul Carter thing. I think I could shock you a second time?
Let's see who you got. I mean, right here at the Niners, I have like many different picks for this, so I don't think you're really going to shock me that much. You're probably going to go with Shedeur Sanders, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Look, I've said this over and over again. Because
where's Brock Bowers going?
Well, you know what? There are some prime spots from there because here's the thing. Indy is still on that board. Indianapolis can take a tight end because you'll get another playmaker from there. Now you've got 5 because with Jonathan Taylor, and then you've got those receivers. Indy does need a tight end,
yes, because their tight ends have been dog shit.
Exactly. And so that's why I'm like, again, San Francisco, wake up, dude. I'm telling you, you are not going to pay $50 million on a quarterback that literally is B+. I'm sorry, but Shedeur Sanders, that is way too rich to pass up, especially at that position that he's at, because the premium's like, what, $7 million at least if you were a higher draft pick up from there, but because you're at 11, that kind of comes down slightly, so that helps your cap space. So, come on, San Francisco, take a chance. Where does Purdy go? To me, personally, I think they keep Purdy for this year, and then I think they work out a deal to maybe potentially ship him somewhere. Or somebody else is going to pay him. Because truthfully, I'm not paying that. I'm not paying that contract. Knowing that I've got 5, maybe to 6 players, if you thought, 13, 14, if you thought that was bad, imagine what next year's is going to look like.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why I want to be prepared.
I am writing the picks down as we go, so I know who we've picked already. But going to Dallas, I know that we talked about their offensive line earlier and that being a need, but I do feel like this is an offensive line heavy draft, and I think they got 2 second-round picks. So with this one, I am going with a interior defensive lineman in Walter Nolan right here.
Oh, I like that. Walter Nolan. Yeah, he's very, very good.
He is a very, very talented defensive lineman who can not only rush the passer, he is a great run stuffer as well. And he is, the one missing piece that they've been looking for on that Dallas defensive line. And, I think that if they get defensive line in the first round, they're going to go second round with O-line right there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I like that wholeheartedly. So, I know the rumors right now, they've been talking about it with the Miami Dolphins. And to me personally, I could see the Miami Dolphins taking a shot at Will Johnson. And the only reason of that is because the Jalen Ramsey situation right now, they're looking to ship him off. So if you ship him off, then you could pair him up because you're going to need a corner. I mean, think about it. Javon Holland and a bunch of, they're gone. So to me, if you get that corner, I know offensive line is also another thing, but they can get it in the second round. So that is the saving grace for the Miami Dolphins.
That's true, but with a talent like the talent of Josh Simmons, Chris Greer, I'm pretty much
Chris Greer's one more shot.
I'm pretty much solidified that the Dolphins are taking a first round tackle or guard. Because Chris Greer came out and said that we need to do our best to protect Tua. I realize I haven't done a good job at that in the past, in the past few drafts. And he's been talking about Tua and how much he's gotten beat up. So I see offensive line there. It's not a bad pick. I'm not mad at the Will Johnson pick. I think it's a good one and everything. I was just expecting O-line. I truly was there. But this leaves the prime candidate. It's here's where I had Colston Loveland going if you would have given Tyler Warren to the
Jets.
To the Jets, but now Tyler Warren's available for the Colts to snag right here. I mean, he's arguably the best tight end in this draft, arguably the best tight end prospect that we've seen since Brock Bowers, which was last year. But I feel like this will fit right along with Indy's system that they play into. And if Anthony Richardson can even come remotely close to being good, this will help him out on the offensive side of the ball.
I agree with that. And again, they need a playmaker because here's the other deal. You've got Joe Flacco. And so to me,
they've got
Daniel Jones. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Daniel Jones. So to me, Daniel Jones buys you time because eventually, I don't know what the Colts, like with Chris Ballard, what he's going to honestly do in the next couple of years. But you need to make Anthony Richardson work, because if he does not, that's going to be a serious problem.
This is his last year.
Yes, this is. So, okay, Atlanta's actually pretty. I like this pick because honestly, Atlanta, they got their quarterback now with Michael Penix. I think, to me personally, you keep it in Georgia, and I would take Mikael Williams in this one because they need an edge rusher. So, because here's the thing. They did not accumulate so much pressures last year, even when they had Matt Judon. How disappointing was that? Now, I know the other I know that the wild card pick is Jahdae Barron, but my biggest thing is like I need to get pressures up there because even Grady Jarrett is getting up there in age, and we know that they need to solve that, and they need to solidify that as quick as they possibly can. So even if you got to get younger in that spot, I mean, you could probably do your due diligences with Matt Judon, but at least with Mikael Williams, he's local. He stays right there up in the state of Georgia, and he goes to Atlanta. So to me, I think this works out perfectly for him.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals, they're going to go defense. I feel like they went offense last year. I know that they want interior offensive linemen help to go along with Paris Johnson Jr., but I think that this is a good defensive heavy draft, and you can get interior O-line in the second round where, it is, more prevalent and more prominent. And I know that on the defensive side of the ball, they need a lot of pieces, but I feel like there is one guy that can make a difference and be the leader of this defense, and that's Jahad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama. And I feel like, you had Jahad Barron there, you had Turner there, you had Stewart there. There's a lot of different ways that you can go, but this is a league where running backs and quarterbacks are starting to run a lot more. And you're starting to see, the mixture of play action and a mixture of run, or a quarterback actually running the ball. And you're in a league where linebacker is starting to be more and more prevalent and needed than what they were in the past. And I feel like if you have a good linebacker, one that could be the leader of your defense, one that could be like a Luke Kuechly type linebacker, where they can make a difference, your defense would be a whole lot better. That's why I got Jahad Campbell going there.
I agree with that. I like that wholeheartedly. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals, to me, I feel like I don't think they're going to keep Trey Hendrickson, truthfully. So to me,
they will. I think they will.
If they find a way to do so, then that's really going to help them a whole lot. But I'd see them taking Shamar Stewart in this one, because the only reason is you got to take at least the best edge rusher available. Now, before we move on any further, because we know Teteroa McMillan, he's a very rich draft prospect, but it's like you and I talked about, because of that comment that he made. And people were saying that was way back then. I don't think so.
That was right after his pro day.
It was right after his pro day. So that's where I was like, what are you talking about? So to me, he's still rich in that spot. But again, it's going to fall to somebody who could honestly make that work. Now, with Shamar Stewart, you got to add pressure. And that's exactly with what Cincinnati, if they can or they cannot make that deal work with Trey Hendrickson, you're going to need an edge rusher. I know they need safety. I know they probably need maybe a corner and an offensive lineman. But because you front-loaded a lot of those contracts up on offense, now you just got to get the younger on defense.
Who'd you choose? So, Turner?
I chose Shamar Stewart.
Stewart, okay.
Yep. So now you got the Seahawks at 18. And the Seahawks, I don't know what John Snyder does here.
Here's where it gets tricky. Now, the Seahawks had arguably one of the worst offensive lines in the league right here. They I looked it up. They had the 28th or 29th ranked offensive line. I think the top three worst was the Bears were the worst, then the Texans were the second worst, and then the Seahawks were the third worst.
Yep.
And, if you have a guy like Sam Darnold and you want him to come in and, be a good quarterback, you're going to need to protect him. You got Charles Cross a couple years ago. I think that this is where they get Josh Simmons right here to help protect Sam Darnold.
All right, so Josh Simmons. All right. And you know what? I like that pick too because, Seattle, they need to desperately protect their quarterback. Now, this is an interesting pick for me. But I do see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they're continuing to go younger up on defense. I see them taking Jahdae Barron here from Texas because to me they're going to need some corner help, and they're getting younger up and in this spot. So, I think they ended up getting because I think, what was it last year? I think it was an edge rusher they got last year. They got an edge rusher with their first pick last year. Yeah. So they're getting younger up on defense. So if you add in a corner, because I know they needed some corner help, because eventually, who knows exactly what their corner builds are going to look like in the next couple of years, because they've already moved on from a couple pieces from back then in the Super Bowl winning roster. So you're going to need to help to solidify that corner roster, and I think Barron is the perfect pick from there.
No, I think Jahdae Barron is a great pickup for the Bucs. I mean, you've got Antoine Winfield in the back end. You've got, Davis, is still a good key piece on that, and they went defensive line last year. I think that you don't really have a prominent, prevalent corner there, so I feel like that would be a good pick for them there. Now,
or you pick. Sean Payton said that he's looking for a joker. And who is that joker?
That would be Luther Burden.
Wow, really?
Luther Burden right here, because here's the thing. Teteroa McMillan, I understand, people are looking at him. For me, I got him falling out of the first round. I do not have him being chosen in the first round because of not only of his comments, but I trust a guy who has been very good at evaluating wide receiver talent in Steve Smith Sr. over the past few years. And he does not like Teteroa McMillan. He thinks his work ethic is sloppy. He thinks his contested catch rate is bad. And he thinks that his footwork and hands are awful. And Luther Burden has the work ethic. He has the footwork. He has the mechanics that you need of a wide receiver. He's tall, and he's actually pretty decently quick. And, you need a guy like that is a big body wide receiver that can go up after the ball. I thought about choosing a defensive tackle right here, but that defense was so prominent last year that the offensive side of the ball needs a little bit more work. I think a wide receiver would be a good choice here. Especially after getting Evan Ingram.
That's true. That's very, very true. And again, they could go and get a tight end and a running back in the later rounds.
Yeah, in the second round, they can get a running back. So that's why I chose a wide receiver here.
So Pittsburgh, this is an interesting spot because there's talks about this George Pickens thing. I don't know how true that is.
Talks about them trading back,
Yeah, this is really hard for me because
do we see a Jalen Milroe? Who
I don't even have
for the Steelers picking right here. That's the question.
I know this is why I don't see them picking quarterback in this first round. Truthfully, I see them going in the second round. That's why I'm because to be fair, if Kyle McCord is still available from there, I could take him there. Okay, that's because again, I know you don't like a particular, but I think experience is everything. So if you get experience and even you match him with an NFL experienced coach like a Mike Tomlin, but you got to get this offense rolling to me. Now I think with offensive players, because to me, I would love to take an offensive line in this spot, but I think because of with George Pickens literally being in the position that he's in, I'm going to take Teteroa McMillan here.
Wow.
Now, the reason of it is, I know it may seem like it's a little bit of an odd fit because you have DK Metcalf and you got Teteroa McMillan, but you know what? It reminds me a little bit of Seattle because Roman Wilson could be your slot receiver from there and be that one that he could explode as a deep ball receiver. Whereas you have Tetairoa McMillan, he could basically bunch out on a couple of route trees from there, and then you got DK Metcalf also on the other outsides as well. And because Pittsburgh, they're going to want a quarterback that can throw on the outsides because that's what Russell Wilson was about.
I mean, Jalen Milroe can do that, and they don't have a second-round pick, too, so you got to keep that in mind.
That's right, yeah. So that's why it's going to be a little interesting. But then again, the TJ Watt stuff is flaming up, so that might be an opportunity to maybe go and snag a second-round pick.
Which is why I'm surprised you didn't choose Mike Green, because if TJ Watt gets traded, you're going to be a rusher.
And you know what? Like I told a lot of people, you could move up closer if you want to get Abdul Carter. But yeah, no, that's very true.
Nah, I mean, like I'm very shocked that you chose Tetairoa McMillan. I like when I say I don't have him in the first round, I do not have him as a first round wide receiver. Like I'm listening to Steve Smith and like his evaluation of wide receivers and like how he breaks it down and everything. I'm like, I never even thought about that. That is an interesting choice there. So I mean, looking at like how everything is, like the Steelers are definitely going to be a wild card. Like they are definitely going to be a wild card right there in the draft, and who knows where they're going to go. But with the Chargers, I'm going to go Colston Loveland. Like they need offensive playmakers badly. The Chargers do. That was one of their Achilles heels last year, one of their weaknesses. And I know that, they have Ladd McConkey, and, you look at all the teams that have had tight ends and have been successful because of tight ends. You've had the Niners because of Kittle. You've had, the Eagles because of Goddard. You've had the Chiefs because of Kelsey. Now you have a guy like Brock Bowers playing for the Raiders, who I feel like with you getting a good quarterback in there, like if you get one.
And you've already got Tyler Conklin as well because he was supposed to.
McBride.
Yep. And so that's the thing is, so Tyler Conklin and then having Will Dissly from there, and you add up that set. Now you've got your dual tight end set. And Colston Loveland will definitely be that bell cow tight end because they haven't fixed that since Antonio Gates. So that's why I'm like, it was clear. And it's one of Jim's Michigan kids. Yeah, I think, and he spoke a lot of very good things about him. Hard worker, great work ethic. And he's also somebody that, like, what Jim will say, he will follow. He will listen. So that's why I'm like, I love that with Colston Loveland. Now, 23. So remember how we thought that Green Bay would have been in the sweepstakes with Myles Garrett up in this one? I thought it was interesting because they haven't pulled off a move like that since Reggie White. But because we're looking at like Rashawn Gary and all the rest of them, I have them taking Mike Green here because he's a very talented edge rusher, and Green Bay, they love to work in the trenches as well. That's why they went and got Josh Jacobs. So to me, adding Mike Green tells me that you are trying to test Minnesota's, Detroit's offensive line. As far as Chicago's, let's just see what happens. But you're going to want a disruptor up and in there, and I think Mike Green feels a lot like Green Bay to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. I mean, in my mock draft, I had Matthew Golden going there because I know that Green Bay has like.
Well, remember when was the last time Green Bay ever took a receiver in the first round?
I mean, that's very valid, but like you also got to look at like all the circumstances that have played out. They've got like a bunch of great defensive talent, and I think that the one thing that they're looking at is the Achilles heel for the offensive side of the ball. They've got Christian Watson, who is a good wide receiver but can't stay healthy. They've got Jaden Reed, who's a speedster and everything. Yep. They've got, Dontavian Wicks, and then, I forgot the fourth guy that they got. But, they got all of these guys, and none of them is –
Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and –
Romeo Dobbs, yeah. Yep. And you got all these guys that, have, certain characteristics. But with Matthew Golden, you got a guy who is tall – a guy who is speedy,
great hands,
great contested catchability, and has the ability to be a true number one wide receiver. And I think that if they would have got him, that would be the missing piece that Jordan Love is desperately needing. So, I understand the Mike Green pick, though. Like, they don't choose a weapon in the first round, but I feel like this is the draft that they would have done it.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Vikings, you've got a team that has almost no weaknesses. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has done a fantastic job building this roster. He got Javon Hargrave this offseason. He got another defensive lineman. I forgot who it was. Then they ended up building the interior O-line where he got, a center and Will Fry's the guard. Like he has built this offensive line. Then you got Christian Darrisaw coming back, who's going to, light it up. This is where the only weakness I see on this team is safety, and that's why Malachi Starks is going to be a good fit right here.
I agree with that because I know Harrison Smith is definitely getting up there in age, and so you're going to need to solidify that safety spot because I know who was it? Cam Bynum was the one who left over Byron Murphy.
Yep.
So you're going to need to solidify that spot, and I think Malachi Starks, he's clearly the very good fit for Minnesota for me.
Do we see an O-lineman here? That is the question.
So, what's interesting, though, because they're thinking O-linemen, they're thinking I think to me personally, as far as wide receivers, I mean, they went and got a bunch of them. So why would they need to add more? Because remember, they got Christian Kirk and they ended up getting one other receiver too in the middle of the draft. To me, interior O-line was horrible. And honestly, I'll take Gray Zabel.
With the trade of Laramie Tunsil too, they need O-line across the board.
They do. So I think to me, I would take the interior with Gray Zabel because that was what was destroying them last year. Because Tyus Howard, I know that they've got him at least in the tackle spot, but I've heard fantastic things about Gray Zabel. I know they were talking about Tyler Booker as their very first pick, but to be completely honest with you, Gray Zabel, with what he's able to do, and I know that he's also a pick from North Dakota State that not a lot of people look at, but you've heard me say this, that if I build my O-line, I'm taking those kids up from the north because honestly, Gray Zabel and what I've seen some videos of him, what he's done in his games, and also in what was it, the Shrine Bowl that he was up. He was fantastic. So Gray Zabel, he's a very good sneaky pick for me, and I know Houston fans may not like it as much, but they'll thank me later with this one.
Now, can you go to the corner? Now, here is where it gets interesting because you look at the Rams, they've got Braden Fisk. They've got, who was the other guy from Florida State that I'm thinking of?
Oh, you're talking about, it was a Cameron Curl?
No, it wasn't Cameron Curl. It was Braden Fisk.
Was it Cameron Kitchens?
No. It was Braden Fisk's teammate. He was the edge rusher.
Jared Verse.
Jared Verse. They got Jared Verse. They got Braden Fisk on that defensive line.
Yep.
But when you look in the back end, they don't really have anybody at safety or at corner.
They are going to need some help, yeah.
That is going to be the prevalent guy that they need. And I think that a guy who's very underrated in this process and is looked at as arguably a first-round talent, Trey Amos. Trey Amos at corner there for the Rams. I mean, it's a great fit for them. I feel like, you can't go wrong if you decide to go this route. And not only that, it builds the back end of the defense while your D-line is still, the heart and soul of your defense. And if you would have had a corner last year, probably would have had a different outcome with the Eagles game.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. So Baltimore, we know that they love their defense. And I think initially you're going to want to pair somebody. You're going to want to pair up Justin Medebike with somebody up in that front line because we know that that's kind of been getting a little bit aging and up and on the line. So I can kind of see Derek Harmon be taken here, the Oregon D lineman, because ultimately Justin Medebike gives you a little bit of that pressure. And then at the same time, you also have Roquan Smith. So you're going to want to beef up that entire front of Baltimore because we know that they don't take receivers at all. They don't really take a whole lot of playmakers. And as far as tight ends go, I mean, I still believe that they're going to trade away Mark Andrews, in my opinion, because you don't want to stunt the growth of Isaiah Likely. But the good thing is you're not desperate at tight end because you do have one. That was the whole point of it. So you could take one in the later round. But I do think of the defensive line, Baltimore, they'll be smart to take a defensive lineman.
Now, if this actually happens in the draft, this would be a dream draft for the Detroit Lions. They cannot let this guy go. They will jump on this pick 100% right away. That is Kenneth Grant. They will jump on this defensive line. pick because like I said earlier, choosing an interior defensive tackle is always one of the hardest picks that you will ever have to choose from and to build your defensive line with. Because if you have a good defensive tackle, you could build your D line around that and make that the dominant force to be reckoned with. You got the guys like Quinn Williams, Chris Jones. You've got Braden Fisk. Like, you've got a lot of these guys that are on the interior D lines that are making it a lot easier to draft edge rushers later on because of that guy. And with Aiden Hutchinson already being on that D line, and then you pair up a run stuffing guy like Kenneth Grant, it's a no-brainer right there.
I agree with that wholeheartedly too. Now, Washington, man, did a lot of things fall on their lap with this one, because you still got Matthew Golden up there. But I also do know
they need secondary badly.
Well, that, and I also do believe that they need an edge rusher, because they really didn't even have that either. But corner, here's my thing with this. They could probably take a steal. I see Washington take a steal of the draft. That's one of my teams. Because remember, there were 5 of them, I said, in my fiery 5. So Washington's one of them, and I could see them go in on Kobe Bryant from Kansas. I really do think that they may end up taking that corner from there. But to me, you're going to want to add up some pressure, because, look, you've got Bobby Wagner, who's aging, and they really didn't have anybody up and up on the front that was really helping him out. As much as I love Matthew Golden from here, I see them taking James Pierce. They're going to want to add speed. They're going to want to add, just physical pressure. So to me, I think James Pierce really does work for this. And you build, because Bobby Wagner being a veteran voice here in this locker room on the defensive side of the ball, I could see him really building James Pierce to the top of his game.
I can see it, but I either see them choosing offensive line or secondary, because that secondary.
Yeah, either one of them. That's why I'm saying a lot of it fell.
Nicky Memori, I'm surprised.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. A lot fell in their lap, so that was actually a pretty rich spot for Washington to be in.
Yeah, I was so shocked you didn't choose Nicky Memori there, just because they that's why they traded for Marshawn Lattimore last year, because they knew that was the weak part of their secondary.
They did, yeah.
Or that was the weak part of their and with Frank Luvu stepping in there, and then you got Jerzon Newsome, who stepped in at the defensive tackle spot, and then they ended up drafting another defensive tackle last year. Yep. I thought that was great, and I thought you could have gotten an edge rusher in the second round. That would have been good for them, and which is why I see them in this draft choosing a secondary piece. But you know what? I mean, can't go wrong with a raw prospect in an edge rusher like James Pierce. So I see it. Buffalo Bills. I mean, take your pick on what you want here. I mean, you can go defensive tackle, you can go edge rusher, you can go safety. In reality, I do have Matthew Golden going here. It would be a great choice for Josh Allen.
Really?
It would be a great choice for Josh Allen because, you got Keon Coleman last year and everything.
You do.
But now Amari Cooper's gone and Stephon Diggs is no longer there. Gabe Davis is no longer there. Yes, you got Kincaid and you got Knox and everything.
And you've also got Khalil Shakir, who looked very, very nice. And Keon Coleman, that you're hoping by year 2 he'll be something. But Matthew Golden up and into this spot, that's really good.
He gives you speed, like we said earlier, but he also has that big body frame that if you need a guy to make a play, he can and he will. Because Keon Coleman plays like he's scared a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what I see from him. He's playing scared. He doesn't play like that tough, big body guy. And Matthew Golden, is the type of guy that, my ball, give it to me. That's
right.
the type of guy that the Bills need. A guy that's not afraid to go up and make a play, a guy that, you can rely on play in and play out. Matthew Golden is that type of guy. And I feel that might be the thing that takes their offense over the hump. But I know that they got holes at linebacker, they got holes at D-line, they got holes at safety, but
Man, why did I have to be landed with the Chiefs? To me personally,
I mean, honestly, there's
You know
only
what I'm happy of? I'm happy that at least Detroit took Kenneth Grant, because if he was still on that board, I'd be pissed. I've heard a lot of people think about that because Chris Jones could be getting up in age, and you're going to want his second heir right there. And oh my God, that would have been
him with Chris Jones and
that would have been terrible.
And Karlaftis. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, that whole front.
There's only one route you got to go here. I mean, what was the weakness in the Super Bowl that was getting to the Chiefs?
Offensive line. Offensive line. Now, here's the thing. Do I go interior or do I go from the tackle? That is the question, because we know, again, they forced out an interior offensive lineman to be his tackle. And from what I'm being told, they were going to want to go with a tackle. But to be honest with you, I'm still going to take one, and I'll take Josh Connerly here.
Josh Connerly would be
I have to be safe with this one because, again, you're going to take a gamble on a tackle that you have no idea that if this kid's going to honestly make it work. Like, that's why I think with Connerly, he solidifies your tackle position. You went out and you kept Trey Smith. You did whatever you could to keep him, because him and Creed Humphrey, you have some time in that interior. Now you could go and get another interior lineman there. But yeah, I think Josh Connerly in that tackle position sounds about right to me.
Yeah. I mean, and right here with the Philadelphia Eagles, where do they go? What kind of position do they go? They can go wide receiver. They can go safety. They can go interior O-line. They can go anywhere. But the one spot that I think is makes more sense. They had who was it that retired this past year? I'm drawing a blank on his name.
They had Brandon Graham.
Brandon Graham retired.
Yep.
And, Derek Graham or Brandon Graham, he is.
And Josh Sweat is
Josh
gone.
Sweat also left. So right here, I see Donovan Ezaraku with Philadelphia right here as the pick, pairing him with a younger, or younger / more innovative defensive line that is getting better, that Howie Roseman has, kind of tried to fix over the years and has finally gotten it right. And I think pairing another young guy in there, making that defensive line almost damn near unstoppable, that's where I got him.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. That is the first of many of our mock drafts.
And then we got mock drafts with trades tomorrow. Woo!
We do indeed, and I'm super excited about that one. So let's recap what we have. We actually had, and I'm not even kidding you, we actually had a lot of A picks between you and I with this first round. And that's not even with trades. So to kind of cap it, we all agreed Cameron Ward would be that one. Travis Hunter, Will Campbell, Armand Menbo, Mason Graham, Ashton Jinty, Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker. That Carter pick, I think, really shocked you. But again, remember, they tried to keep Hassan Reddick. They did not. So they did not have their successor on the other side. That's the problem.
They could do it in the second rounds, though. Like, you need weapons for
But knowing Aaron Glenn, he likes defense. So to me, I know that
defense is fine. Defense is great. But like when you got an offense that ain't gonna put up shit without any playmakers and everything.
Well, again, I mean, what's better?
Who's to say Elijah Arroyo is gonna be there? Maybe he gets
Elijah Arroyo could definitely be up there if the Jets, because I think the Jets, they have a second round pick, so they're up there. So again, Elijah Arroyo could be that next pick right up from there, and you could get your playmaker. But here's the other thing:
there, he might not be.
But remember this: who was their steal of the draft at running back? Braylon Allen, wasn't it? I could see the Jets maybe going and getting Nick Nash later in the draft, because to me, I got Elijah Arroyo, and I've got Nick Nash. The Jets will definitely have They're playmakers.
I mean, the odds of
They'd be doing the
Arroyo
opposite.
being there are very slim because there's a lot of people that value the tight end position, and a lot
They
of people that are picking
do.
early in the draft that may take him.
They do, but who truthfully, by the time you get into day 2, who needs a tight end in day 2?
A lot of teams.
Well, here's the thing, though. If I looked at the day 2 picks, I guarantee you they're not even going to take them at least in that second round, probably in the third. But again,
I mean, so let's see here. We've got the Browns, Giants, Titans, Jags, Raiders, Patriots, Bears, Saints, Bears, and then Jets. I think out of all of those teams,
now guess what? The Raiders could potentially move on from Michael Mayer.
Yeah,
they could.
I mean, they got Brock Bowers, so I don't really see it happening.
Now, this is the day. Remember, this is the day that I could see the Raiders moving their tight end, the Ravens moving their tight end, and potentially the Eagles moving on from Dallas Goedert.
I mean, that's possible, but like in day 2, Jags got rid of Ingram. I could see them going after Elijah Arroyo.
Yeah.
The Patriots, I could see them going after Elijah Arroyo, have more weapons for Drake May. I could see the Saints going after Elijah Arroyo, and the Bears, they've got 2 picks. I mean,
now the other thing is there's also going to be some teams that may need a possession tight end, and that's where Harold Fenton is still around.
That's true.
So,
I mean,
and then not to mention too, there's Mason Taylor. And
Mason
who would
Taylor's not going to be a third rounder, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite possible. So
it is, but like it like you look in a league now where defense is prevalent and you need the defense. I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but you're looking look at Cleveland. Like, for example, you have a team that has the offensive playmakers but doesn't have a quarterback, and we scored 16 points.
Yeah.
Like 5 or 6 games, 16 points.
Yeah.
Imagine the Jets having a phenomenal defense and everything, but you can't put up any points because you ain't got any playmakers. Yeah. Now, what happens if you get Tyler Warren? Maybe that makes the difference and you start scoring more points.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
you're playing devil's advocate. Like, you've got to really juggle in your head, be like, Abdul Carter could be a generational talent. But you've got to, if I'm a GM, you've got to walk that fine line of our defense is good enough right now that I feel like we could pass on Abdul, and we need to fix our offense and score points, which is something that the Jets did not do a lot last year. And there was a lot of games that they held their opponents to 20 points or less. And if the Jets would have scored over 20 points, they would have won those games. So I'm not mad at the pick. I was just shocked. I can understand why they would do it, and they would have a tough decision to make there.
I agree with that. Well, we got to wrap up the show quick, and I appreciate everybody. We will have this on our show, all social medias. Definitely give us your thoughts on these picks from here. Jake Silva and Chase Cephas, we're signing off here. We'll see you guys in the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show here. Take care of yourselves and get ready for mock draft number 2 here coming up this week. Take care, everyone.